Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
I'd been diagnosed with migraine in 2012, but I didn't really understand what it meant. I thought migraine was just another word for headache. So when I started getting those attacks, I just thought that the headaches were getting worse. And it wasn't clear to me at that time what was going on and what I was heading for. But gradually, migraine also impacted my work and my family too.
Welcome to Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head-on. I'm your host, Joe Koh, Director of Therapeutic Area Growth and Integration at the Global Healthy Living Foundation, as well as co-president of GHLF Canada. I've been a migraine patient for over 20 years, so I know firsthand how debilitating this disease can be. Today I'm here with Genevieve Pharand, who is a lawyer and a member of the board of directors of Migraine, Quebec. She had her first migraine attack around the age of 10. I'm really excited to speak with you today, Genevieve. So, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
So, I like to begin this podcast by asking all of our guests what their worst migraine attack was like.
Even though my first migraine attack, I was about 10, like you said, I would say that my worst migraine attack was in 2016, about 7 years ago, in between the age of 10 and 43, which I was at the time. It was mainly headaches and dizziness. But in September of 2016, I got my real first migraine attack. We were invited by a company on a weekend, my ex-husband and I, all paid, all activities, and I ended up staying in the room of the hotel in the dark for the whole weekend with this big headache, nausea. And this was my real first big migraine attack that I got. And that started the cycle of becoming from episodic and going to chronic migraine in about 2 years.
Let's talk a little bit about that transition, that negative transition from being episodic to chronic. How did that feel? I know physically you feel different, having more attacks and more symptoms. How did that feel emotionally? And how did you process that?
Well, first, I have to say that I'd been diagnosed with migraine in 2012, but I didn't really understand what it meant. I thought migraine was just another word for headache. So when I started getting those attacks, I just thought that the headaches were getting worse. And it wasn't clear to me at that time what was going on and what I was heading for. But the impact is that gradually I started losing friends because I was getting those attacks first every 3 months, then every 2 months, every month, every 3 weeks, every 2 weeks, and it was getting worse. And so I kept canceling movies, restaurant with my friend, and I couldn't explain what was going on because I couldn't explain it to myself. And then it was very hard to see them go because they didn't understand. And over the months that went by, I just concentrated my energy on work and my family. But gradually, migraine also impacted my work and my family too.
Before we recorded this, you were talking a little bit about the stages of grief that you went through. Can you explain what that means to folks around migraine? That might seem like a strange concept. We normally think of grief as when someone passes away and the stages of grief in relation to that. How did you process migraine using a similar thought process?
Well, just like I said, first I lost friends. After that, in 2018, I went on sick leave. So I lost all contact with my colleagues, identifying myself to my work. So I was like somewhere in between. I didn't know. I had lost the sense of contribution. So all those losses that came one after another, it was very hard to live. I was angry about myself for having this illness. And then I felt sad for losing friends, colleagues, but also losing opportunities that I saw that was in my work. People were getting promotions and I was on sick leave. And so I think it's similar to when someone dies. I was losing so many things that I had to go all through those stages to finally realize that the migraine was taking me somewhere else. and to accept that it's now part of me and I have to live with it.
And how is it living with migraine in Canada?
Well, I think we are lucky here in Quebec. A lot of the medication is covered by insurance or PAMQ. We still have an issue of neurologists. There are not enough for the population, but I'm lucky I have a good doctor that tried to help me. And when she couldn't, she referred me to a neurologist specialized in migraines. So I've been followed by the two of them since 2020. New medications have arrived here in Canada, and I'm trying one of them right now. So I'm really grateful for everything that's been coming our way in the last few years. It's giving hope to every person living with headaches and migraines.
And you took this very hard and deep and painful experience of living with migraine for so many years and somewhat turned it into a positive by getting involved in advocacy. Can you talk a little bit about the advocacy work that you do and why that's so important to you?
In 2020, I got the first medication that started helping me. I went from 15 migraine days a month to about 8 or 9. So I was feeling a little bit better. And really, the feeling of not contributing to society or to something was very heavy on my shoulder. And I was a member of Migraine Quebec since 2018. And I received an email saying they were looking for volunteers. So I gave my name and started helping the director. She needed some help to revise some policies that needed another lawyer to intervene. So I was the contact between the lawyer and the director, and that's how I started volunteering. So it wasn't really in my field, but it was something I was used to doing. And from there, they asked me to be on the advocacy committee. So again, defending the rights of people is something I have inside of me. So I really enjoyed and I was really glad they asked me. And I've been on this committee since 2020. And after that, they asked me if I would sit on the board of directors as an administrator. And I was named on the board in February 2021. So it really helped me. Help first, the sensation that I have of not contributing. Now I have something, a cause. And it also helped me, I would say getting better because I started using my brain again. I felt I was doing something. There's no pressure in doing anything because it's a caring environment. If we have a meeting and someone has a migraine, well, we just cancel the meeting and that's it. There's no pressure. So it's really a caring environment. So really it helped in an emotional way. And it also helped me getting better by started using my brain, working a bit on my own pace whenever I was all right. But really, it made me in action.
That's so important, and it's really valuable for our audience to hear that we can find purpose in many different ways. And you're talking about how you found a slightly different purpose that you may have not envisioned for yourself. You also discussed pacing, and if you live with a chronic disease, our pace might not be at the same pace as someone who doesn't. And we live in a culture that we're all looking at Instagram and social media and all these different influencers that are showing their pace might not be our pace. So we need to figure out what that is for ourselves. And it's beautiful that you've been able to find that purpose and that pace in your life. It's really important.
Yeah. Before I got chronic migraine, I was going 100 miles an hour, always working, and migraine stopped me from doing that. So I have to find my new pace now. What's best for my mind, my body, and my work.
Great point. We have to continually check in with ourselves and see if we're doing enough, if we're doing too much, and really keep adjusting and reevaluating. It's a really good life lesson. I'm certainly learning it. I'm trying to practice it more.
It's not easy.
It's not. One of my last questions for you, we talked a little bit about you being so young when you got your first attack. If you could go back and tell your younger self one or two things in relation to migraine and chronic disease, what would they be?
I would tell myself that first, it's an illness. It's not something that you can control because all the time I was in my 20s and 30s, I was trying to control the headaches to work and take care of my family. And I wasn't taking care of myself. I didn't listen to myself. So I would tend to realize that I have this and I have to take care of myself to make sure that it won't get to chronic migraine, because really I wouldn't go back to that stage. It was really painful. And so I would say to myself to really listen to my body and my head.
Very important. Was there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to cover or discuss on Talking Head Pain?
I just want to tell people to keep hope, because I say migraine in my life was like a bomb exploding in my social, my personal life, my professional life. And now I'm rebuilding all those aspects in my life. And we have to keep hope. I never thought a few years ago that I would be here talking to you, or I would be at this point feeling better. And so we have to keep hope that things are going to get better.
Well, thank you so much for being part of that hope.
Thank you.
And we know that your story will help and inspire others that listen. And I really appreciate the time and energy that you took to join me today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head on. This podcast was made possible with support from AbbVie Canada. If you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions for us, you can send us an email at podcast@ghlf.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it an honest 5-star rating, write a positive review, and spread the word by sharing it with your friends and family. It'll help more people like you find us. I'm Joe Coe, and I will see you next time.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.